Hello folks, welcome to Legacy IS Academy. In this video, we will be doing a detailed analysis as to how did the Jews migrate to your Palestine, and we will also be seeing in-depth detail about the initial phase of settlement. Now, when I say in-depth phase or initial phase of settlement, the timeline we will be covering is up until your end of Second World War. Okay, that is the initial phase of settlement. Now, if I have to tell you with regard to Israel and Palestine conflict, it is the most debated and complex topic. Why is it most complex topic is because what started somewhere around your 19th century, end of 19th century, has not found, this issue has not found a solution even in 21st century. Still conflicts are going on. Your Israel-Hamas war, Israel-Hezbollah war. So wars on wars is keeping on going on. And yet we are nowhere nearby to even finding a peace plan. So but also, despite multiple bodies trying to mediate, a feasible peace plan has not been there which will be bringing holistic peace to the land of Palestine. In this we will also be discussing about what led to today's Israel, which is born in a Muslim majority land. In a nutshell, if we have to see the factors, for one of the options and all would be first is your Jewish immigration, Zionist ideologies, British imperial policy, and the final thing which led to your reshaping of Palestine. Now let's go to the origin story, that is beginning. If you see Palestine, it was under your control of Ottoman Turks up until First World War. Okay. Now we are not talking about the timeline as to what happened after First World War. We are talking during the period while Palestine was still under your Ottoman control. Understanding that is up until First World War. If you see the demographics of the population which was in Palestine at that point of time, the majority of them were Muslims, around 85 to 90% of the population, a minor fraction of Christians, and a very small Jewish community. Okay. Now, where if you see this Jewish community was present, their pockets, it was your very holy city of Jerusalem, Hebron, Safed, and Tiberias. Okay. Now, these communities, the Jewish minorities which were present here, they were all of your religious community because they are all centered around very holy places, right? Now, if you see during the Ottoman Turks period of time, when Palestine was under the control of your Ottomans, at this period of time, the land system, how it was during that point of time, means we can bring it into three types. One is Miri, second is Mulk, and third is Waqf. Okay, what is Miri? See, Miri means it's almost like this is a government land. Okay, whatever piece of land comes under Miri, it is all government land. The people, especially the farmers, could use that land, could use it for cultivation, could do agricultural practices, everything. But they cannot sell that land. Why? Because they do not own that piece of land. Government owns that piece of land. Okay. Second thing is your Mulk. Mulk is your privately owned freehold land, which means private property. Next comes your Waqf properties. Waqf properties are your religious endowments given to your schools, mosques, understanding charity purposes. Okay, it is more of a donation. One thing that happened during your Ottoman land code is there was land registration. Okay. But many people, that is the peasants, avoided the registration of land. Why? Because that would mean they will have to pay tax and they'll have to entail for military services. Understanding? So what happened? These lands, because the government said no, you have to, someone has to register the land. So who used to own that land means your urban elites and your absentee landlords. Okay, where was this absentee landlords? What does that mean? Which means the landlords were not in that place. They were elsewhere. That is why the term absentee landlords. Now, where were they then? They were usually in your Beirut and Damascus. Eventually, what happens is, when your Jews start coming in and start wanting to purchase the land, they end up buying land from these people, absentee landlords. This was a shocker to the peasants because they felt, wait, our land is taken away from us. Right? This is where the conflict concept begins. Alienation starts. Understanding? Now, let's begin the concept of your Jewish side. We saw how was the background or the base with respect to your Palestine. Now, let's see what led to the Jewish people migrating into Palestine, or what was the push and pull factors. Push factor means I have no other option, I have to leave this place. Largely in your Eastern Europe, especially in your Soviet, or that is your Russia, right, in that period of time, a large amount of anti-Semitic violence was done on Jews. Okay, it was more like a hatred violence in the form of your pogroms. Understanding? This was more focused in your Eastern Europe and Russia region. And they were excluded from land ownership. If you exclude from land ownership, what happens? You do not have a viable source of income. And also they were excluded from many professions in Europe. So you don't have a way to earn a livelihood. If you do not have a way to earn livelihood, then you can't survive there. Apart from that, there was also a rise in anti-Semitism, that is hatred against Jews. This was in the period of your late 19th century. Okay, so they wanted to come out of that particular place in search of alternate form of livelihood. This, let's keep it on one side. This is the push factors. Next is, first and foremost, when they wanted to come back to a place, they were looking for something like the Holy Land or whatever place that has a religious connection to them. That was your Jerusalem. And also, the communities felt like we need to build again. Okay, and in the same period of time, what happened is they were feeling like we all have to come together. Understanding, the Jews have to come together and we need a homeland. Constantly we are being harassed, pressured, anti-Semitics, violence. We are forced out of our properties. We are forced out of our professions. All this is because we do not have a proper belonging. Now we need a belonging, which means we need a homeland. Alongside that, because of many philanthropic activities, and also, right, from your Rothschild family, they were very influential and affluent family. So because of lot of philanthropic activities, your Jews all around the world now decided, okay, we can go back to our holy land. Understanding? That is what led to both the push factor and pull factor. Economic factor as well as your religious factor as well as social factors coupled in led to the first aliyah in 1882, which went on up to 1903. What is this first aliyah? Aliyah means Jewish immigration. Jews started coming into the Palestine. Understanding why we saw the push and pull factors. Now, how many Jews came in the first aliyah or the first wave of immigration? Let's keep it that way. Mostly around 25 to 30,000 Jews came from largely your Eastern Europe region, that is more your Russia regions. Okay. Now when they came in, right, they started something like a moshavat, which means first they will decide and do farming. All our community people will come together, do farming, and where they settled means your Pita, Rishon, Zikron, and these places they settled, which means they started creating new settlements. Prior to what we discussed, the settlements like Jerusalem, these three settlements also your Jewish settlements increased. Now when they came in, it was not going to be a smooth ride for them. They had to struggle due to a lot of things. First is they didn't have more of your farming skills there, and another thing is because of the soil. Okay, soil, this thing is also poor, and also they had huge issues to face from your diseases such as malaria, and also there was very much lack of funding. Then how did these 35 to 40,000 plus people survive? It was because of your philanthropic activities. One such person is your Baron Edmund D. Rothschild, who comes from a very wealthy, affluent Rothschild family. They were more of your bankers and supporters. They were the one who helped in order to sustain this people. This was a very, very important thing for them at that period of time. Understanding? Coupled with this, what happened was there led to be something called as a rise of Zionism. What is Zionism? A home for Jewish people, a homeland for Jews. This was popularized and strengthened by your Theodor Herzl. Understanding? Period of 1860. Now what happened? He is an Austrian Jewish journalist. He said it is high time that we found our homeland in the holy state of Palestine. Otherwise, the Jewish home state is what he published. This got good amount of attention, and this strengthened the fact of your Zionism. Understanding? A homeland for the Jews. Now, before we move further as to what happens in the pattern of story, now if you're someone who wants to kickstart your UPSC civil service preparations, look no further. You have found the right spot with Legacy IAS Academy. Why? We offer our batch size strictly at 40 member per limit so as to give you individualized and personalized attention. We also offer one-on-one mentorship, easy access to educators, daily mains answer writing challenge, prelims mock test series, interview mock test series. Alongside, we also have a holistic current affair classes, CSAT classes. Now, for those of you who are looking for weekend classes, be it working professionals or students, we do offer weekend as well as weekday classes. We also offer our courses in both offline as well as online mode. For more information, you can contact Legacy IAS Academy or check out Legacy IAS Academy website. If you want to book a demo session, you can schedule a demo class either online or offline. Now let's get back to the topic. So Zionism, meaning a homeland for Jews, was strengthened. Then what happened in Basel 1897 period of time, first Zionist Congress was created. Their let's say the goal or objective of why they met was simple. We need a Jewish homeland in Palestine. So what started as with respect to a religious longing or trying to escape now became a political ambition or a political project that we need to go there. Understanding? Then comes the second phase, that is something that leads up to your First World War. Okay, not yet First World War, something that is leading to the First World War, 1904 to 1914 period of time. This is where your second aliyah happens. What happens? Again here also, around 35,000 to 40,000 Jews immigrate to Palestine. And where are they coming from? Again same your Eastern Europe regions and also Poland, Yemen. At this point of time, they started creating something like community farms. Okay, that is, these people will purchase the lands. Remember when we were speaking about your Ottoman Turks period of time, the land registration was done during your absentee landlordism. Lands were here, peasants were working, but it was registered under someone else who was in somewhere around Beirut, Damascus area. Now these people, when they came in this large numbers and they started in small settlements, they started purchasing of these lands. Understanding? From whom? From your absentee landlords. So when they started doing that, they established kibbutzim. Okay, these were communal farms which first started in your Digania. Also, they started with the concept of Hebrew labor. In this community farms, we will employ only Jewish laborers, that is workers. And also in the same period of time, they founded Tel Aviv. This was the first Hebrew city with their objective, and their objective became that we will set up a homeland for Jews. This became the first important milestone. Then what happened with the political front? They started creating more of your socialism, community farms, and all this, Hebrew labor, and also it started becoming a nationalistic move. Okay, this is what later led to your Israel concept coming in. It was mentioned that Israel is going to be your, uh, let's say, the state for your Jews. And alongside the same point of time, when they started buying these lands from the absentee landlords, and also they set up something called as Jewish National Fund. Okay, wherein they bought the land for the Jewish people so they could start this. They also created, or more of a global fundraising was done in the form of World Zionist Organization, that is to create a homeland for Jews. So Jewish interests were starting to be represented in front of the British people. Now what started happening in the ground reality, that is in Palestine, was, yes, they started purchasing the land from absentee landlords, yes, but this would mean that the peasants who were working there all throughout, now they had to be evicted. Yes, this created huge resentment among your Palestinian Arabs, telling that they are taking our land, and their number of settlements are also increasing. Okay, this fears also started to become increased. Now enters the period of your First World War. First World War period of time, Ottoman Empire is completely collapsed at the end of First World War, which ended in 1918. Now British gained the majority. Now League of Nations mandate was set up. British told, okay, Palestine is there, and they put forward something called as Balfour Declaration. According to Balfour Declaration in 1917, the British told, we will create a homeland for Jews. At the same point of time, we will safeguard the rights for the Arabs. This is what was told in Balfour Declaration. Now finally, if you see with respect to your World War I, Jewish immigration also started, settlements also started coming in. This also meant that your Arab and Jewish tensions also started increasing. Okay, because the Jewish immigration kept on increasing, the Arabs they started losing their land, and the land once that was in a majority of 85 to 90 or 95% of population was now becoming very threatened. This led to resentments against your resentments. The Arab community also, again, we would see major kind of conflicts in your Palestine with respect to Jaffa riots, Hebron massacre, which led to hundreds of deaths and mistrust among both the communities of Jews and Arabs. A British commission was now brought in. Okay, now when you see why was this events happening, it was showing that it was because of two reasons: loss of their land rights, and also because of huge immigration of Jews. The Arab revolts also kept on happening, wherein they were against the British rule and they were against your Jewish immigration. So their demand for the Arab revolt, which started in 1936, went on for around 3 years, was simple: stop immigration and stop the land transfers. Understanding? Your response to your Arab revolt, your British set up a Peel Commission in 1937, which said, we will partition the Palestine to your Jews and Arabs. And they passed something called as White Paper. In 1939, they restricted the Jewish immigration for the next 5 years to 75,000. Now this did not satisfy both of them. This does not satisfy neither the Jews nor the Arabs, but this was what there. Now the period of time, if you see, it was White Paper, was around 1939. This officially marks the beginning of your Second World War. Now in the Second World War, we all know what happened with respect to Nazism, Hitler, Holocaust. Around more than millions of Jews were killed. So what happened? Many decided to flee from there and take refuge in Palestine. That was seen as their homeland. Now, when they wanted to enter into understanding, when the refugees, that is Jewish refugees, wanted to enter into Palestine, your British restricted the immigration. Why? Again, because of that white paper. Now, in order to somehow get into the refugee Jews, they started something called as aliyot, which means at least through ships. Let's go in illegal immigration also. But many a times, all these illegal immigrations would be beforehand stopped by your British itself. And after the horrors of your Holocaust, the global sympathy grew for Jews after your Second World War. Now, your Second World War ended in 1945 period of time. And also, what was once the high and mighty British, now they no longer had that power or authority. So, this was the end of your British mandate. And they were unable to manage the tensions of Palestine. So, what they did, they handed over the issue to your United Nations. Understanding? So, now when your United Nations took over, it decided for a partition plan. Okay? Wherein a separate Palestine will be separated for your Jewish and Arab. This ends your initial stage of entry of Jews into Palestine. So now let's sum it up as to what were the key elements in the first phase or the initial phase of Jews entry into Palestine. First is, we saw Ottoman land loss. Okay? This is where we saw the different kind of lands, and where we saw absentee landlordism. Next is the first aliyah, first wave of your Jew immigration. This time they could support themselves is only through your contributions from your Rothschild families, and because of their support is where they could withstand it. Then next to the second aliyah, they started creating communal farms. The first city of Tel Aviv was created, Hebrew city. The next stage is your Zionism and the role of your Herzl, wherein they created a political ideology that we need the concept of Israel, that is your Jewish homeland. Then this period leads to the creation of your Jewish National Fund. Then finally, with your Ottoman Turks decline, end of First World War, and British taking over the reins, led to your Balfour Declaration, where it said that a homeland for Jews as well as your Arabs' interest will also be protected. Then finally, a British mandate is created. Then this leads to what? Huge settlements also starts coming in, which would mean loss of land rights. Your Arab peasants are evicted. This leads to riots, revolts, and resistance to immigration. Then finally leads to Arab revolt. As a aftermath to that, your British sets up Peel Commission and White Paper, wherein they in the Peel Commission they say they will partition your Palestine into Jews and Arab homeland, and also the White Paper limited the immigration entry of Jews into Palestine and control of land sales. Then begins this 1939 period, begins your Holocaust period, which is a very one of the worst forms of thing that could be done to humanity. Then this created a global sentiment for a homeland for Jews. Finally, with the end of Second World War, the British power or the mandate also ends, which it hands over the issue of Israel, Palestine to your UN. Now in 1947, formally UN decides to partition. Understanding? Now if you see what can we see from this? Yes, Jewish settlements started with immigrations, land purchases. Throughout at that period of time, if you see in the Europe, there was a large anti-Semitism, and also in the Jewish communities, Zionist ideology started coming more. British imperialist policy aided their Zionism to an extent. Arab resistance grew with respect to the population that once had majority of them. Now they are being evicted from their lands. Demography started changing. Okay, this led to the early, let's say, the seeds of conflict between your Israel and Palestine. Okay, with this we've come to the end of the content. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share it along with your friends. Thank you.